All right, so you know how this works, right? You send us some stuff you're curious about, and we kind of take a deep dive into it, see what we can pull out.
Exactly. And this time we're looking at Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a pretty well-known book by Robert Kiyosaki. It's all about like the different ways people think about money.
Yeah, it's a classic for a reason. Tons of people swear by it. So our listener here, they want to really grasp these ideas without getting bogged down in the technical stuff.
Right. Yeah, they're looking for those golden nuggets, those actionable insights that you can actually use to get a handle on your finances.
Bingo. So our mission today is to like sift through these excerpts from Rich Dad, Poor Dad and pull out the stuff that can really change the way you think about money.
And hopefully help you make some smarter choices with it.
Totally. So the book starts off by introducing these two father figures,
Right.
Kiyosaki's own dad, and then this rich dad character.
Yeah, and they're like total opposites in how they view money.
Totally. So what were some of those contrasting ideas that really jumped out at you?
Well, right off the bat, you see this difference in their approach to risk. Like, one dad is all about security and playing it safe, don't take any chances. It's that classic, like, stability over everything else mentality.
Uh-huh.
But the rich dad is like, no, you got to learn to manage risk. He sees it as, like, essential for building wealth.
It's like one is trying to protect what they've got and the other is looking to grow it, even if it means, stepping outside that comfort zone a bit.
Exactly. And another big one was their views on owning a home. The first dad, the one focused on security, he's like, our home is our biggest investment. It's our greatest asset, which, is what a lot of people believe.
Makes sense.
But the rich dad completely flips that script. He's like, my house is a liability. If your house is your biggest investment, you're in trouble. It's like, whoa, hold on, what?
Right. It really makes you question everything you thought you knew about, like owning a home and what an asset really is.
Yeah, it throws that conventional wisdom right out the window.
Definitely. It kind of hints at this crucial difference between things that actually put money in your pocket versus the things that take it out.
Yeah.
Which I think is a big theme throughout the book.
For sure. And another contrast was how they approach paying bills.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
One dad, he's like, got to pay those bills right away, first thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the rich dad is like, no, I pay my bills last, which on the surface sounds kind of crazy.
Yeah, like irresponsible almost.
Right. But the idea is that by prioritizing investing in yourself, you're creating this need to figure out how to cover those bills. It's almost like this self-imposed pressure to become more creative and disciplined with your money.
So it's not about ignoring your bills. It's about shifting your priorities and using that pressure to like find solutions.
Exactly.
Okay. That's an interesting way to look at it.
And then, of course, there's the whole question of where financial security comes from.
Yeah, one dad is all about the security of a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Like the company will take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even the government will help you out.
Well, the rich dad puts the responsibility squarely on the individual.
It's about self-reliance, right?
Mm.
Taking control of your own financial destiny.
Exactly. And what's so powerful about these contrasting viewpoints is that it forces you, the reader, to really think critically about these concepts. It's not about one being right or wrong. It's about forming your own informed opinions about money.
Makes sense. So with these two contrasting figures in mind, the book jumps into its first big lesson, right? And this one revolves around a story where Kiyosaki and his friend Mike work for the rich dad for like, what was it, 10 cents an hour?
10 cents an hour.
10 cents an hour. That's brutal.
Right. It's like you can barely buy a pack of gum with that these days.
So tell me more about this story. Why is it so central to the book's message?
Well, at first, the boys are excited. They're like, we're going to make some money. But that excitement fades pretty quickly. Like, imagine working your butt off for hours and only getting a measly 10 cents an hour.
It's like, what's the point?
Exactly. And when Kiyosaki goes to the rich dad expecting, maybe a raise or something,
Yeah.
he gets hit with this totally different kind of lesson.
Not the raise he was hoping for.
Not even close. Instead, he gets more work, unpaid work.
Oh, man. That's rough, especially for like a 9-year-old. What was the point of that?
The rich dad was trying to teach them a really important lesson, that the poor and the middle class, they work for money, but the rich, they have money work for them.
It's that classic idea of passive income, right?
Exactly. That 10-cent wage, it was like a wake-up call. It was meant to make Kiyosaki question this whole idea of trading his time for such a small amount of money.
So the real learning came from the unpaid work. Like, it forced him to think outside of just the hourly wage.
Exactly. The rich dad wanted them to shift their mindset, to start thinking about acquiring assets that generate income on their own without them having to constantly work for it.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
And what's even more interesting is that the book points out that more money doesn't necessarily solve your problems if you don't have the financial education to manage it properly.
It's like that saying, if you give a fool $1 million, they'll just find a million ways to lose it.
Right. And that's something our listeners should really take to heart.
It's a good point. We've all heard stories of lottery winners who end up broke.
Yeah, it's not just about having money, it's about knowing how to use it to your advantage.
Which brings us to the next point. Fear and greed.
Oh, those two.
How those emotions can really screw up your financial decisions.
Totally. The book talks about this concept called the rat race, where you're stuck in this endless cycle of working, earning, spending, and getting deeper into debt.
It's like you're running on a treadmill and going nowhere.
Exactly. And it's often fueled by fear, the fear of not having enough or the greed for wanting more and more stuff.
It's like you're never satisfied. You get a raise, but then your expenses go up. You buy a bigger house, but then you need more furniture.
And what's interesting is that the book says even wealthy people can get caught in this trap. They might be driven by the fear of losing their wealth, so they just keep chasing more.
It's like no matter how much you have, it's never enough.
Right. But the key takeaway here is that we have a choice in how we react to these emotions. We can be aware of them and make conscious decisions instead of just letting fear and greed control us.
So instead of just working harder and harder to keep up with the Joneses, you step back and think about how to actually improve your financial situation in the long run.
Exactly. It's about thinking strategically, not emotionally.
So how do we do that? How do we escape the rat race?
That's where financial literacy comes in. The book emphasizes that understanding how money works is way more important than just getting good grades or being really good at your job.
It's like knowing how to earn money is one thing, but knowing how to manage it, grow it, and make it work for you, that's a whole other skill set.
Exactly. And that's why the book's definitions of assets and liabilities are so important.
Okay, so let's break those down. How does the book define an asset?
An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket.
Simple enough.
And a liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket.
So it's all about cash flow.
Cash flow is king. It's not about what something is, but what it does to your bottom line.
So a house, for example.
Yes, the house.
That's where things get a little controversial,
Yeah.
right? Because most people consider their home to be their biggest asset.
That's the traditional view.
But the book challenges that.
Big time. Because for most people, their house doesn't actually generate any income.
You're just paying a mortgage, property taxes, insurance.
Maintenance, repairs, all that stuff. So from a cash flow perspective, it's more like a liability. It's taking money out of your pocket every month.
It's not that the house has no value. It's just that its expenses often outweigh its immediate income-generating potential.
Right. It might appreciate in value over time, but in the short term, it's a drain on your finances.
Gotcha. So the book is saying that the wealthy focus on acquiring assets that generate positive cash flow. Things like businesses, investments.
Rental properties, stocks, bonds, things that put money in their pockets consistently.
While the poor, they mainly just have expenses.
And the middle class, they often buy things they think are assets, like big houses or fancy cars.
But those things end up being liabilities because they require constant spending.
Exactly. So it's crucial to really think about what you're spending your money on and whether it's truly an asset that will build your wealth or a liability that will drain it.
This all leads nicely into the book's third lesson, mind your own business. Now, this doesn't literally mean quit your job and start a business, right?
Not necessarily. It's more about focusing on building your own asset column, regardless of what you do for a living.
Okay, I like that. Can you give me an example?
Well, the book talks about Ray Kroc, the guy who built McDonald's into a global empire.
Yeah, everyone knows McDonald's.
But most people think of McDonald's as a hamburger business, right?
I mean, that's what they sell.
Right. But Kroc always said that his real business was real estate. He was more interested in owning the land that the McDonald's restaurants were built on.
So he was building his asset column through real estate,
Yeah.
even though his income came from the fast food business.
Exactly. And that's what minding your own business is all about. It's about building that financial foundation, regardless of your job.
It's about having multiple streams of income.
Exactly. And the book argues that a lot of people struggle financially because they spend their whole lives working for someone else, never really building their own assets.
They're trapped in that rat race we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So our listener, as they're learning about these concepts, They need to start thinking about how to build their own asset column.
And the book also mentions that the poor and middle class tend to be more fiscally conservative, almost out of necessity.
Right, because they haven't built that financial cushion yet. They're too dependent on their paycheck to take any big risks.
They can't afford to lose their job or have a sudden drop in income.
Exactly. So they tend to play it safe, even if it means missing out on potential opportunities for growth.
And there's also this interesting contrast in how the rich and the less wealthy approach luxuries.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
The rich buy luxuries last after they've built their wealth, while the poor and middle class often prioritize buying those things first.
It's all about where your money is coming from. Are you funding your lifestyle with your assets, or are you going into debt to buy things you can't really afford?
It's a good question to ask yourself. So let's move on to lesson 4, which delves into the history of taxes and the power of corporations. This section was really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, it's not something you typically think about, but it's super important.
The book talks about how income taxes were originally intended to target the wealthy, but over time, they've expanded to significantly impact the middle class.
It's that whole Robin Hood idea, right? Take from the rich and give to the poor.
Except it hasn't quite worked out that way.
No, not really. As government spending grew, the tax base had to expand. So the middle class ended up shouldering a big chunk of the burden.
But the book argues that people who are financially savvy often find ways to legally minimize their tax burden.
That's where corporations come in. And we're not just talking about huge corporations, but also smaller, privately held businesses.
Right, like the kind of business someone might start on their own.
Exactly. And for the wealthy, a corporation is like a legal tool, a way to structure their finances in a more advantageous way.
So it's not just about making money, it's about protecting it and making it work harder for you.
Exactly. And one of the big advantages of a corporation is that it can pay certain expenses before taxes are calculated.
So let me see if I understand this. If you're an employee, you get your paycheck, taxes are taken out, and then you pay your bills with what's left. But with a corporation, you can earn revenue, pay your business expenses, and then you're only taxed on the remaining profit.
That's the gist of it.
That's a huge difference. It's like the tax system is designed to benefit businesses over individuals.
That's one way to look at it.
And then there are the legal protections that corporations offer.
Right. They can shield your personal assets from business liabilities and lawsuits.
So if someone sues your business, they can't go after your house or your personal savings.
Exactly. It's all about creating those layers of protection and separation.
Makes sense. So understanding how corporations work and how to use them strategically is a big part of what the book calls playing the money game.
And the book emphasizes that every dollar you have working for you in your asset column is like having another employee.
I like that analogy.
Hmm.
It makes it really clear why building assets is so important.
Mm.
Now, lesson 5 throws out this bold statement: the rich invent money. What does that even mean?
It means that wealth isn't just about being smart or having specialized skills. It's about being bold, creative, and having what the book called financial intelligence.
It's about seeing opportunities where others don't.
Exactly. Like the story the book tells about Western Union turning down Alexander Graham Bell's telephone invention.
Oh, wow, they missed out big time.
Huge missed opportunity. And the book says that financial intelligence is something you can develop, through practice and experience.
And that's where the cash flow game comes in.
Yeah, it's a board game designed to teach you about cash flow and investing.
It's like a fun way to learn about money.
Exactly. And the point is that the more financially intelligent you are, the more options you have.
You can turn challenges into opportunities.
Exactly. The book even goes so far as to say that money itself isn't real. It's just something we all agree has value.
It's like a shared illusion.
Right. And the point is that if you understand how this illusion works, you can use it to your advantage.
You can invent money by creating value and generating cash flow.
Exactly. So we've covered the foundational lessons. Now let's get into the practical stuff. Chapter 8 is all about getting started.
Okay, so what are some key takeaways from this chapter for someone who wants to start putting these ideas into practice?
Well, first of all, the book says you need a strong reason, a reason greater than reality to drive you. It's got to be something that really motivates you to achieve your financial goals.
That's good. Your why.
Exactly. And then it's about making conscious choices every day to prioritize your financial education.
Like instead of binge watching Netflix, read a book about investing.
Exactly. Small changes, consistently applied, can make a big difference over time.
It's all about building good habits.
And the book also talks about being mindful of who you surround yourself with.
Because negativity can be contagious.
Exactly. You want to be around people who are positive, supportive, and knowledgeable about money.
And then there's this idea of mastering one formula and then learning a new one.
It's about constantly learning and adapting. The financial world is always changing, so you got to stay ahead of the curve.
You gotta be a lifelong learner.
And then, of course, there's the classic principle of pay yourself first.
That's a big one.
It's about putting money aside for investing before you pay any of your bills.
It's about prioritizing your future self.
Exactly. And the book also says to pay your brokers well.
Meaning, find good financial advisors and don't be afraid to compensate them for their expertise.
Exactly. It's about aligning your interests with people who can help you achieve your goals.
And there's this interesting concept of being an Indian giver. What does that mean in this context?
It's about finding ways to get something for nothing. Like investing in a rental property with a small down payment and then having the rent cover the mortgage and generate extra income.
So you're essentially getting the property for free over time.
Right. It's about using leverage and creativity to make your money work harder for you.
And then going back to something we talked about earlier, the book emphasizes buying luxuries last after you've built your asset column.
It's about creating a sustainable lifestyle that's funded by your assets, not by your job.
And it talks about choosing financial heroes, people you would admire and can learn from.
It's about finding mentors and role models who can guide you on your financial journey.
And then there's this beautiful principle of teach and you shall receive.
It's about sharing your knowledge and giving back to others. The more you teach, the more you learn.
And the book has tons of real-life examples to illustrate these points, right?
Yeah, like finding real estate deals that require little to no money down, or attending affordable seminars to learn about investing.
It's about taking action, being proactive, and being willing to learn.
And the book encourages you to make offers even if you think they're too low. You never know what a seller might accept.
It's about being bold and not being afraid to negotiate.
Exactly. So now we come to the final thoughts section, where the book ties everything together and looks towards the future.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here?
The main message is that the wealthy don't work for money. They make their money work for them. They build assets that generate passive income and portfolio income.
And that's how they escape the rat race.
Exactly. And the book also introduces this idea of the cash flow quadrant,
Which categorizes people into employees, self-employed, business owners, and investors.
And the idea is that the path to financial freedom often lies in moving towards the business owner and investor quadrants.
It's about becoming financially independent, not just having a job.
Right. And the book emphasizes that financial freedom is a choice you make every day.
It's about how you earn your money, how you spend it, and how you invest it.
And it encourages our listener to find their own unique path to financial independence.
It might involve unconventional learning, like reading books, attending seminars, or finding mentors.
And it also involves trusting your gut, being willing to take calculated risks, and learning from your mistakes.
So the final message is that anyone can achieve financial freedom regardless of their current situation.
It's about financial education, taking action, and never giving up on your dreams.
All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it all comes down to this. Shifting your mindset from working for money to having your money work for you.
And that means building your asset column and becoming more financially literate.
So, our listener, here's a question for you to ponder. What's one small step you can take today to start minding your own business?
What's one thing you can do right now to start building your financial future?
And here's one final thought to chew on. The book argues that traditional education prepares you for a job, but it doesn't really teach you about money.
So what does that mean for you? How are you going to educate yourself about money and build your financial independence?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.